I'm really excited to show you guys what Retool has allowed us to build. So if you're not familiar with OnDeck, we run cohort-based courses across a number of different programs. This is a snapshot of what we are offering right now. And this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Like Adara said, we have 30 to 40 programs that we'll probably have by the end of the year. So it's just an insane amount of growth that we've been able to achieve. We also operate in addition to those courses, we have a kind of the campus for our fellows, which we call the directory. It's an internal tool. Fellows can use that to watch replays of sessions, connect with their fellows, do some matchmaking. We've got other very interesting things that are just exclusive to the OnDeck universe. The problem that we had when I joined in November was that we were about to launch 10 new programs before January. So in 2 months, we had to figure out how to go from 3 programs to 13 programs. And there's a lot of operationally intense things that go on when we start up a program or start up a cohort. We've got to interact with our directory, which has a traditional database. There's a bunch of other products that we have that also feed off that database. We've got to provision users in Slack. We've got to make that talk to Auth0. And then we've got a whole bunch of no-code automation tools that also are in place, sending emails and sending evaluations. So there's a whole lot of stuff to wire up. The problem is, in the beginning, it was all done through manual work in Airtable, CSV dumps going around, and then the engineering team was ultimately writing import scripts that would run against our database. That was not scalable, especially when we have tweets like this going out. This is actually kind of out of date, but this was at the point where we'd launched 13 and this says 25 programs, but we're actually going to be probably about 40. So it's crazy the amount of growth we were expecting. And we just could not maintain this using these manual tools and using Airtable. What ends up happening is we would become a bottleneck. So we had 2 options really. We could scale the engineering team at the same pace that we were scaling programs, which is not going to be cost effective at all. Or we could invest in some better tools, and that's where Retool comes in. So I'm going to demo a couple apps that we've built internally for managing programs and cohorts. But we have a lot of other tools internally. And the really exciting thing that Retool has allowed us to do is let the operations folks dive in and prototype some of their own tools. And they need very little hand-holding from us. Sometimes we need to go hook up some SQL queries or something like that, but otherwise they're pretty much self-sufficient building their own tools at this point, which is really exciting. This is an overview of the programs we have right now. It is a seemingly simple app. The queries that are powering this stuff in the background are provisioning all sorts of things like provisioning Slack workspaces, setting up different permissions groups, communicating with different databases and firing off a bunch of different emails and things like that. We also have cohort management. So inside each program, we have different cohorts that run for about 8 to 10 weeks. So once you've set up a cohort, then you can start adding fellows to it. This again seemingly looks like a simple app, but when you're going through and adding a cohort, it kicks off a whole cascade of things that are now automated instead of being a manual process. The thing I wanted to do a live demo of is actually something that is still, we're doing Airtable still for some of our application management, but we have this import tool, which would previously be a really nasty script that engineering would have to write custom for every single program. So what I can do is upload a CSV. And while it's loading, this is going behind the scenes. It's doing a bunch of data cleaning. It's making sure that we're not adding duplicate users. And you'll see the output here is something that we can inspect afterwards to verify that the import that we're going to do is going to do exactly what we want. So you can see you have a summary here of new fellows. So this is people that we don't know about who are going to be added brand new. There's a different way we provision those users. There are a couple of existing fellows that are going to be added to this new cohort. So maybe they're in a previous cohort or another program. We handle those a little bit differently because they already kind of exist in our system. And one that's important is we identify duplicate fellows. So it's possible some people will do a bunch of edits in Airtable and then want to re-upload the fellows. And we don't want to re-provision a user because then they'll have duplicate accounts and it'll be a mess. If you really want to dig into the very technical details, we have this toggle here, mostly for developers to debug things, but we'll actually show you all the inserts we're going to do into the database. And that's kind of as a gut check when we're doing new additions to this tool to make sure we're not actually going to break something. Once you're satisfied with the import, you can press the big red button and it just fires off a whole bunch of hooks, a whole bunch of queries, populates database, sets up Slack. It's pretty magical. Now, once we have the fellows in there, sometimes they will need some manual debugging. So maybe their login doesn't work. Maybe they're not part of the right Slack workspace. And that's where this tool comes in. This gives us an overview of a fellow, and it lets us perform certain actions in some of these other tools. Like if they forgot their password, we can generate a password reset link for them. If we need to add them to a different cohort, we can just do this. This is actually going to add them to a cohort, invite them to Slack, do a whole bunch of automation behind the scenes. We can search here by email, Slack ID, or name. We can also search by program and by cohort. And all this data is being fed live from our database, from Auth0, from Slack, and a bunch of other sources. So we always have a real-time look at exactly what a user looks like. And then more common things that people want to do is change your emails. That's a pretty key thing that people ask us for. And so instead of having engineering go into these desperate systems and change the email, we can do it from one place within Retool. So with all these tools, it's been really exciting because we definitely got from the 3 to the 13 in January. We're now at 15, and June and July, we're going to be launching 5 in each of those months. So in pretty short order, we're going to be into the 20s of programs, and Retool has been instrumental in helping us do that. And like I said, our ops folks are now, we have about 60 users in our Retool instance now, and they're all in there building tools, interacting with these tools, and it's been a really great partnership. And we're thrilled to continue working with Retool.